Welcome to Wicked Mysteries, the channel where we examine curious, strange, and often deadly events. In today's video we explore a dream home turned nightmare for its new owners when sinister letters begin arriving from someone watching the family's every move. Our story begins in 2014. The Broaddus family, Derek, Maria and their 3 children were about to make an exciting move. They had just closed on their absolute dream home, a beautiful $1.3 million 6-bedroom house in a pristine neighbourhood in Westfield, New Jersey. Maria had grown up close to the area and had always admired the house. Now, with her husband having just earned a big promotion at work and the house being available to buy, it seemed like the stars had aligned. It was perfect timing. The house had several owners over the decades, as it was by no means a new build. It was a sprawling Dutch colonial home built in the early 1900s. A lot can happen in the span of a century, and there was a lot of history in that house, and plenty of secrets too. William H. Davies, the mayor of Westfield at the time, lived in the house in the 1930s, and it was the backdrop of many extravagant social gatherings. A few more owners came and went before it became the home of the Woods family. In 2014, after 23 years living there, they sold it to its new owners, Derek and Maria Broaddus. The keys had changed hands and the family had big ideas for the house. They immediately set in motion their plans of $100,000 worth of renovations to the property. The family didn't want to live in the middle of a building site, so held off on actually moving into the property until any major works were complete. In hindsight, they would never get the chance to live there, as a strange letter arrived just a few days after the sale was final that scared them into keeping their distance.
Dearest new neighbour at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighbourhood. How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within? 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. I see already that you have flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Bad move. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy. You have children. I have seen them. So far I think there are 3 that I have counted. Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family? Or was it greed to bring me your children? Once I know their names, I will call them and draw them to me. Who am I? There are hundreds and hundreds of cars that drive by 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I am in one. Look at all the windows you can see from 657 Boulevard. Maybe I am in one. Look out any of the many windows in 657 Boulevard at all the people who stroll by each day. Maybe I am one. Welcome, my friends, welcome. Let the party begin. The Watcher.
Derek and Maria were understandably freaked out by the letter and called the police. Investigators were just as puzzled as the couple, and asked if they had made any enemies who might wish them harm. Everyone drew a blank and there were no tangible clues to pursue. Derek contacted John and Andrea Woods. After speaking with them about what was happening, they mentioned that they too had received a strange letter a few weeks before they moved out. They found it odd but decided to just dispose of the letter and forget about it. Their letter said something about someone watching the house for generations too, but they couldn't recall the exact contents word for word. In the 23 years they had lived there, this was the only creepy letter they had received. Whoever wrote the letter had eyes on the family. The wording tells us that. The police told them to keep the existence of the letter to themselves for now. The family were spooked, but continued the renovations while living elsewhere. Roughly 2 weeks later, Maria visited the house to finalise some design details, and when she arrived, there was another letter waiting for her.
Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard. The workers have been busy, and I have been watching you unload carfuls of your personal belongings. The dumpster is a nice touch. Have they found what's in its walls yet? In time they will. I'm pleased to know your names now, and the names of the young blood you have brought me. You certainly say their names often. Is she the artist of the family? 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found all of the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. Will they sleep in the attic? Or will you all sleep on the second floor? Who has the bedrooms facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in. It will help me know who is in which bedroom. Then I can plan better. All of the windows and doors in 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. Who am I? I am the Watcher, and I have been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. The Woods family turned it over to you. It was their time to move on and kindly sold it when I asked them to. I pass by many times a day. 657 Boulevard is my job, my life, my obsession. And now, you are too, Broaddus family. Welcome to the product of your greed. Greed is what brought the past 3 families to 657 Boulevard, and now it has brought you to me. Have a happy moving in day. You know I will be watching. The Watcher.
While the first letter was disturbing, the second was truly chilling. Not only could the Watcher see them, but he or she could also hear them, detailing names and watching their young daughter paint while sitting in the garden. The garden was enclosed by tall shrubbery and railings. For someone to see and hear the family, they could only have been spying from a few select places, or their view would have been obscured. Police were at a loss, and the Broaddus family hired private investigators to track the culprit down. Even then, their identity remained a mystery. The renovations were nearing completion, and the time to move in came and went. Fearing for the safety of their children, the couple became more and more removed from the idea of living there, and did everything they could think of to unmask their tormentor first. Derek and Maria's paranoia was at an all-time high, and their nerves were wrecked. Derek spent the night alone at the house, in darkness, hoping he could catch a glimpse of the Watcher through binoculars. His plan failed. They staged an open house and hoped that a signature in the guest book would match the handwriting found in the letters. Again, that didn't work. They started to suspect the family next door, the Langfords. Their property would have an unrestricted view into the Broaddus home and garden. Peggy Langford, an elderly woman in her 90s, lived there with her adult children. Her son Michael became the prime suspect. He was described as being a bit odd and reclusive. He was questioned by police and denied any knowledge of the letters, and there was no proof linking him to them. A PI working the case had the envelopes tested for DNA, and the result indicated that the saliva used to seal them was female. Suspicion fell to Michael's sister Abby. She was a realtor, and the theory was maybe she was bitter at missing out on the opportunity to sell the expensive house. However, Abby's DNA was not a match.
Where have you gone to? 657 Boulevard is missing you. 657 Boulevard is turning on me. It's coming after me. I don't understand why. What spell did you cast on it? It used to be my friend, and now it is my enemy. I am in charge of 657 Boulevard. It is not in charge of me. I will fend off its bad things and wait for it to become good again. It will not punish me. I will rise again. I will be patient and wait for this to pass, and for you to bring the young blood back to me. 657 Boulevard needs young blood. It needs you. Come back. Let the young blood play again like I once did. Let the young blood sleep in 657 Boulevard. Stop changing it and let it alone. The Watcher.
The Broadduses snapped. Their dream home had become a nightmare, and around 6 months after they bought it, they made the decision to sell. They also decided to sue the Woods, claiming they were fraudulent by not disclosing the letter they received before finalising the sale. The case was dismissed, as legally they had no obligation to disclose the letter, and it only happened once in 23 years. There was no genuine perceived threat by the Woods, and they argued they did not intentionally mislead the new owners. Suddenly, now the courts were involved, the strange story, once private, became very public, and selling the house was next to impossible. Who would willingly buy a house that came with an unhinged stalker attached? Some people were willing to buy it, but for a rock-bottom price, meaning the Broadduses would be financially ruined if they caved in and sold. In desperation, they applied for planning permission to demolish the house and build 2 new properties in its place. They were unanimously denied. Eventually, in 2017, they compromised and started renting out the house instead. The tenant received the following letter.
Violent winds and bitter cold. To the vile and spiteful Derek and his wench of a wife Maria. You wonder who the Watcher is? Turn around, idiots. Maybe you even spoke to me, one of the so-called neighbours who has no idea who the Watcher could be. Or maybe you do know, and you're too scared to tell anyone. Good move. I watched as you watched from the dark house in an attempt to find me. Telescopes and binoculars are wonderful inventions. 657 Boulevard survived your attempted assault and stood strong with its army of supporters barricading its gates. My soldiers of the boulevard followed my orders to a T. They carried out their mission and saved the soul of 657 Boulevard with my orders. All hail the Watcher. Maybe a car accident, maybe a fire, maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away but makes you feel sick. Day after day after day after day after day. Maybe the mysterious death of a pet. Loved ones suddenly die. Planes and cars and bicycles crash. Bones break. You are despised by the house, and the Watcher won. The Watcher.
The media and public were enthralled by this sinister mystery, and everyone who heard about it wanted to find the author of the letters. A story is always more satisfying with a neat ending tied up in a bow. Gothamist writer Lauren Evans and photographer Christian Hansen ended up following a trail of breadcrumbs that led them directly to the steps of the Watcher house in hopes of discovering the truth. Much like Hansel and Gretel, the two would have to keep their wits about them if they didn't want to lose their way in a small town full of secrets and strangers. The breadcrumb that set in motion their impromptu excursion was an email. Bill Schaefer contacted them and explained he had lived in the house between 1955 and 1963 during his high school years, and his family sold it when he was heading off to college as they didn't need such a large home anymore. They bought it in the 50s for $23,000, a far cry from the modern valuation of $1.3 million. Bill said that his time at the house was a wonderful experience, and that nothing creepy or untoward ever happened while he lived there. He thinks the letters are a sick joke, or from someone with an axe to grind, but nothing more sinister than that. Strangely though, an email arrived the very next day after speaking with Bill that said the following. So, heard from a friend who knows someone who lives on that street in New Jersey. The Watcher is a local crazy who lives on the street and harasses everyone. Apparently, he's an adult son of a couple living on the street. Everyone who lives there knows who it is, and no one will speak up because they're afraid he'll genuinely retaliate. The guy's parents defend him and think he's harmless, when in reality he makes life uncomfortable and annoying for everyone in the neighbourhood. He probably hasn't actually broken any laws, so the police will do nothing. Lauren Evans was so drawn into the mystery she decided to make the trip to the Watcher house herself, to see if the locals could shed some light on the bizarre story. What she found when she arrived was a tight-knit community, with even tighter lips. Everyone she spoke to either shrugged off the story or clammed up, unwilling to speak on the topic. After striking out with the general public, the next stop was the local police station. She hoped she could use the contents of the email as a bargaining chip to get some confirmations from the police. They gladly listened to the contents of the email and then gave zero information back in return. Another dead end. It was time to canvass the neighbours directly. Someone must know something, anything. Her suspicions were on high alert, and everyone she saw pottering around their garden or walking past their window felt like a suspect. The neighbours she managed to talk to echoed Bill Schaefer's theory that it was probably some kind of joke or hoax. Nobody seemed to know anything about the local crazy mentioned in the email. Who better to know the inner workings of Westfield than the person dealing with the local headlines? Lauren interviewed Horace Corbin, the newspaper's publisher. While stating he didn't believe the psycho-stalker theory of events, he did point the finger in an interesting direction. He hinted that this could all be the concoction of the Broaddus family themselves. Eventually, Lauren left Westfield with more questions than answers, and although she tried her very best, the mystery still remained unsolved. Many people suspected the Broaddus family of staging the whole thing, maybe for attention or to back out of buying the house after realising they bit off more than they could chew financially. Their finances were under scrutiny as the upgrade from their last home to the $1.3 million house was quite a jump. And where did that large budget for renovating come from? The family denies any involvement and takes great offence to the accusation. So much so that Derek did send some letters of his own. First to his former neighbours, scalding them for not believing their situation and turning a blind eye to his family's suffering. Then he wrote to town officials who blocked his request for planning permission, stating his anger at their indifference to his plight. There was one final twist in this tale. 657 Boulevard was not the only house to receive a letter. Another family on the same street was sent similar correspondence. Around the same time the Broaddus family were first contacted. They dismissed it as a prank and threw the letter away. This revelation, however, led to a stakeout. 2 officers sat in their van at around 11 p.m. hoping to see something. A car pulled in and parked close to them. It sat for quite some time, long enough to catch their attention. The car belonged to a young woman whose boyfriend lived on the same block. Looking into the couple, it was revealed that her boyfriend had a serious interest in dark video games, including one with a character called the Watcher. He failed to attend any voluntary interviews about the letters, and as there was no evidence at all connecting him, he couldn't be forced to comply. Being a gamer, thankfully, isn't a crime. The case was then closed. There has been no correspondence from the Watcher since 2017. The house finally sold in 2019 at a $400,000 loss, and Derek and Maria moved on. Was this a sick joke by a neighbour? Or a cry for attention? A frustrated onlooker that felt slighted in some way? An enemy of the owners, or perhaps even the owners themselves? Or was it someone with more nefarious intentions? Who was the Watcher? And are they still out there to this very day?
Waiting and watching.
Thank you so much for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and turn on the notifications for more wicked mysteries. Remember, always lock your doors and windows, and if you're anything like me, always have an axe nearby just in case. I'll see you on the next one.